Hello and welcome to round 3 of the Dominion Online Championship 2024 hosted by Shuffle It. This is the feature game from round 3 because it allows us to continue exploring new cards and new mechanics introduced in the latest Dominion expansion, Rising Sun, in a competitive environment. Today we will look at the prophecy mechanic. Prophecies are these landscape blue cards, one of which can be seen at the bottom of your screen. The text on prophecy cards are not active at the start of the game. Instead, there are 5 sun tokens placed on a prophecy card. Only when all 5 sun tokens have been removed from the prophecy does the text become active. Naturally, there must be a way to interact with the sun tokens. All prophecies come with an omen card in the kingdom. Let's look at the prophecy that we will consider specifically for today, Biding Time. Biding Time says that at the end of your cleanup phase, set aside all your cards in your hand face down. Then at the start of your next turn, add all of those cards back to your hand. The way to remove sun tokens from Biding Time is through Rustic Village. It has the sun token on it. This means that anytime any player plays a Rustic Village, 1 sun token will be removed from Biding Time. It also gives +1 card, +2 actions, and allows you to discard 2 cards for 1 card. Let's have a look at the rest of the kingdom now. We have plus actions from only 2 sources, First Mate and Rustic Village. Rustic Village is the simpler of the 2 sources of plus action. As such, I expect myself and my opponent to buy Rustic Villages at the beginning of the game. This means that I anticipate the effect of Biding Time to come into play somewhere in the middle game. In general, prophecies have powerful effects, so it's well worth considering both the effect and how long will it take for the effect to come into play in the game. We have plus cards from Hunting Party, Old Witch, Haunted Woods, and also from First Mate in some instances. We have plus buy only from Mining Road. We have gain from Replace and Expand. Finally, we have trashing from Replace and Expand as well as Cathedral. In this game, my opponent and I choose 2 different strategies. I go for the more traditional, more established strategy because I'm unfamiliar with the new cards. However, my opponent gives us a nice exhibition of the new cards, especially of the Biding Time prophecy. My idea, the traditional way, was to start with Cathedral, thin down and build a deck that has some amount of Hunting Parties, Old Witches. Mining Road is going to be the key card for me. I want to get as many Mining Roads in play as possible. That would allow me to buy gold, get the gold into play, get benefit from the gold right away, and then in the end game I can use either Replace or Expand to trash those gold into provinces. I am not concerned about any of the attacks here. They are quite strong attacks, but Lighthouse is there to protect you, and Cathedral is there to make the deck clean very quickly. Let's see what my opponent goes for instead. They start off with a silver instead of a Cathedral. The traditional approach to Cathedral games is that if you're going to buy the Cathedral, you buy it on turn 1. However, my opponent does not do that. To my surprise, I go ahead, I buy the Cathedral. I calculate that I can play the entire game with Cathedral. When Biding Time comes into play, I can set aside a copper face down and then put that into my hand, and the Cathedral will have something to trash every single turn, and I'll have ample plus buy from the Mining Roads that I would have in my deck. So gaining the copper is not an issue at all. Will my opponent get Cathedral on turn 2? This is the question. They do not. They actually get 2 silvers. This is a bit of a hint as to what they want to do. I thought they might be targeting Inheritance here with the double silver opening. Let's see. I trash my first estate, before I shuffle the deck thanks to the cathedral, and I buy a silver. Silver is important because I want to get to 5. There are many 5 costs I'd like to buy here. Let's see how my opponent continues on turn 3. They get to 5, which is expected from a double silver opening, and they buy a young witch. I have no problem with the young witch. As I mentioned in the kingdom analysis, Lighthouse is there to protect you, and I'm trashing a card every single turn with the cathedral. I have no problem with curses coming into the deck. Seeing the young witch, the old witch, not the young witch straight away, I buy a lighthouse on 3 coin. They get a rustic village, my opponent does. So they get 4-5 on their first shuffle. The rustic village means biding time will come soon. We have to bide our time for biding time. I get to 5 here, no surprise because of the cathedral. And my first 5 is going to be a hunting party. I want to cycle a bit more quickly, get through the deck, get to see all my new cards as soon as possible here. Another rustic village for my opponent. Biding time is coming quickly. Hunting party finds me my lighthouse. I get up to 6 and I decide now to go for a mining road. I think my deck is thinning out quite nicely. I can see that mining road more times than not on the next shuffle. Rustic village into old witch for my opponent. I am protected. I don't gain the curse. However, as I initially thought when I saw the double silver opening, my opponent does get to 7 and they straight away go for an inheritance. So it's as though they have 5 rustic villages in their deck right now. Biding time will start very soon. We'll see how that influences our gameplay. Trash a copper because of cathedral. I do find the mining road and I have 8 and 2 buys. What do I buy here? I go for a second lighthouse, and on the 5, I was considering either hunting party or an old witch or perhaps another mining road. I went for the aggressive option, which is the old witch. My opponent has not shown any lighthouses. Maybe the curses will be disruptive to them. Additionally, I do need draw other than hunting party for the kind of deck that I want to build. I want to have multiple mining roads in the deck. Hunting party will skip over all of them if you have one in your hand. Rustic village for my opponent. So they've effectively trashed 3 cards with the inheritance. They play an old witch. Here are the estates that would ordinarily be dead, and they trigger biding time on this turn. All the sun tokens have been removed, so they do not play all the treasures from their hand, even though they can. They just play enough to get them up to 5. They buy a replace, which is an excellent card for them. It can turn their coppers into estates, which function as rustic villages for them. I continue trashing. I trash a copper. I have no problems drawing dead into these 3 actions because of biding time. This is one advantage of biding time. It can set aside actions for you so that you can use them on your next turn. Get up to 3. I will buy a silver. All of these silvers are probably going to be targets for replace in the future, so I'm not too worried about putting them in the deck. Additionally, my deck is very thin. I can use those silvers, the money from those silvers. There was a small issue here with the spec chat being on. In case you can't read Japanese, Yudai was considering out loud whether or not Haunted Woods would be a good purchase here. Look at my opponent's hand size. It's huge. Why? Because biding time stored 3 cards from their last hand and put them into their hand on this turn. So their hand size is huge. However, you may not have realized it, but what that does is it takes coppers out of the deck. It is a form of trashing because the coppers never go into the deck, so there's no chance of, or there's less chance of Rustic Village not finding Old Witch or Old Witch drawing into Rustic Village is dead. And my opponent is going to leverage this pseudo trashing mechanic offered by biding time for the rest of the game. This is a distinct advantage over what I am doing. Cathedral knocks out all of the copper from my deck. It means I don't get access to the buying power from those cards. My opponent doesn't use the buying power from their coppers straight away, of course, but on the last turn, on the last 2 turns, they can choose to play all the treasure from their hand and have a huge turn. I cannot do that because the treasures are actually out of the deck. They're not stored face down outside of the deck every single turn. We get hit with a curse here from one of the young witches, the old witches. Out comes the replace. I expect to get cursed again here. However, they choose to get a lighthouse on top of the deck and put it into play straight away. Reasonable, considering I have an old witch. Again, they get up to 5. Set aside everything else from their hand, which in this case is 3 cards, and they buy a second old witch. I will use the biding time first to put all the cards into my hand, and then use the cathedral to trash a copper. I see the whole deck, and I don't play the second lighthouse because I want to have one in play every single turn. I get up to 10 and 2 buys. This could be a couple of 5s or a 4 and a 5. I think I should put a rustic village in the deck now. I go for another mining road and my first rustic village. As a result of the biding time now, my opponent has had a couple consistent turns, and here's the full effect of setting aside a few cards from your hand, in a way similar to Grotto. My opponent has drawn their whole deck. Let's see what they can do with it. Here's the replace. They turn a silver into a mining road, and they play that mining road straight away. They play 6 coin, and they buy a gold. That goes into play right away, and they buy a lighthouse. How many cards did they set aside now? 7 cards. 6 of them are probably copper, or maybe it's 6 coppers and an estate which functions as a rustic village. Their deck has more power than mine's, and honestly, more consistency, I would say. Even though I've been trashing 1 card a turn for the last 8 turns. I am going to see the whole deck here. I use the effect of Rustic Village to draw an extra card so that I can set aside my hunting party for the next turn. I see most of my money here. I go up to 11 and 3 buys. This is enough for a gold. Comes into play straight away because of the mining road. So now I have 8 and 2 buys. 8 is going to be another hunting party and a 3rd silver. Mining road can put it into play, but doesn't actually do anything because I have no buys left. This is a bit of a scary hand for me here, but let's not focus on my hand. I'm doing the traditional approach, the pre-Rising Sun deck. Let's have a look at the 14 cards in my opponent's hand, thanks to biding time. 2 Old Witches draws them almost until the end of the deck. The Rustic Village will pick up the curse. Here's the Mining Road. Now let's see how they leverage the amount of cards they have in their hand here. I'm expecting to see the replace come out again. Yeah, there's the replace. Trashes the curse. Could be a state. I'm expecting a state. No, it's another lighthouse. They draw the lighthouse. They play the lighthouse. Here's the gold. Here's 10 and 2 buys. That's good. Good in this kingdom. They get a gold and they start in on the provinces straight away. So they are pushing P. They're pushing me to end the game here as soon as possible. And they have a replace. I don't have a replace yet. That was quite scary for me. Not only do they have the 6 points from the province, they have the estates in the deck to give them a further points lead. And my deck still isn't quite there yet. Biding time puts the hunting party in my hand. I trash a curse because of the cathedral. However, I will draw some cards dead here because I did not find my 1 rustic village. I get up to 13 and 2 buys and I feel pressured. I have to buy the province here and I get a replace to attempt to keep up with the amount of gains that my opponent has. Again, they start off with 11 cards in hand. I do not see how they stall at this point. One other point against me is that I was not able to put a lighthouse in play last turn, so I am starting to eat curses from the old witch. I really don't need that in the deck right now because we are in the end game and the hunting parties easily trip over the curses. I am expecting to take up to 3 curses this turn, 2 from Old Witches and 1 from replace turning copper into estate or turning gold into province. It's not entirely clear to me. We had a bit of an issue here. There was a disconnection. My opponent resigned, and then we had to reconnect and restart the game at a later point. As a result, there was a bit of a skip just now. Just to catch you up, my opponent has 3 provinces and 3 estates. That is 21 points, and I only have a couple provinces in deck, I believe. And they've been continuing to set aside a massive amount of cards for the last turn or 2 here. I apologize for that, but there was not much I could do in terms of showing you the game, that is. So we skip ahead. I played 1 turn and then my opponent played out their turn here. I bought a second province. They bought, I think, 2 of them on their last turn. I can't recall correctly. Let's just start from here. 21 to 13. They top deck a hunting party. They gain another replace. At this point, they can go through 3 provinces. They can go through 3 provinces. So on my last turn, I bought duchies. You see there are 5 duchies left. However, my opponent makes the necessary preparations to end the game on the next turn by getting another replace. Actually, they undo here and choose to take an expand over a replace. It has the same effect. Expand is just a bit more flexible because it has a bit more reach. And they get a hunting party just to make sure that they can draw into all the pieces they need to end the game. I don't even get to province here. This is quite bad for me. I'm not really sure what to buy here. On 7, I go for an expand. I don't have villages to play all of Old Witch, replace and expand, but that is probably the best I can do at this point. However, my opponent is able to finish the game on this turn. They replace a province into a province, they expand a province into a province, and then they put down the heap of money that they've been storing with biding time to get up to 16 and 2 buys to finish the game. It's very well played for my opponent. I'm very happy that they showed us how to use the new mechanic, the new prophecy biding time, in a constructive way. However, I was able to come out 4 to 3 at the end of this, so we progressed to round 4. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.